Just got done trying to find that darn thread where people were discussing the mechanics being tied with settings, and I couldn't find it. That's too bad. So another sub-update video, I'm going to discuss the other system that I've been talking about that I've been working on. I think it was before NewCon 2016. Like the few weeks before, I was like, ooh, instead of doing this, I could do, like, I wanted to share one of the things that I liked that I felt like didn't get enough attention or positive trained exposure. Fortunately, this video is going to have a lot of big, like, placeholder card stuff in it. Anyways, I had this idea. I was like, oh, I could expose people to this way. I just need to figure out how to do it. I was like, will it really take that much? And I just started working through some ideas, and boom, before I was I was like working through a combat system and all this stuff. But I started this like 1 or 2 weeks before the convention. I did not have time to throw together anything. Come on. I mean, heck, I still hadn't thrown together the things I had actually put in the schedule. So I crunched really hard on it, got to a certain point. It probably stuck with me for a while after the convention. I kept working on it for a while, and I put it down. Because again, like, I'm a cat, and you throw a laser on a different wall, and I go somewhere else. So that was the first push. And at some point, earlier this year, maybe late last year, since we left Omaha, I got into it again. Again, probably because I didn't have anybody to play with regularly. I didn't have any systems that I was running regularly, and I thought more about getting this going. Let me take a moment as I'm getting into the second push and try to describe this weird placard card that I'm going to be kind of putting up here mysteriously. There's another video game, not Darkest Dungeon. I talked about that one. There's another video game which I thought might make a really interesting RPG, both from the combat perspective and from the narrative perspective. The setting is rich and deep, but there was no role-playing mechanics. Sorry for the second yawn. Which actually, based on who I knew on the IP, I was actually a little surprised about that they hadn't done something, or that I hadn't heard about something. So that's the reason why this is all very generic in my speech, because whereas I feel like you can do Darkest Dungeon and do it, you can speak openly enough about its inspiration as its source as an inspiration, and especially with Lovecraftian stuff being what's the legal word? It's not open source, but that's essentially what it is. It's easy to do that. With this thing that I'm talking about, this video game that I got inspired by, the IP is very much still alive. It has been licensed out for some things. But I mean, this is just something I wouldn't plan on putting up on the web for distribution, for sharing. I'd probably play a bit with my friends, with other people testing it, maybe bring it to a convention or whatever, but I would never like, oh yeah, here's the rule book. And if I did ever do the rule book, it would have essentially no setting in it. The setting would be go to this website, go to that website, go to this website over here, read over there, go play the video game, get an idea of the setting, get an idea of the factions and the background and all this other stuff. If I thought it was actually going really well, I would actually really consider sending it to them, because I know some of the developers and art staff and all this stuff at that video game company enjoy tabletop role playing, so they could give it a whirl. And I mean, surprise beyond surprise, they could offer to pick it up. They could. I'm not aiming for that. My aim is to have a system that I can run myself, right? That other people enjoy. So this video game, which I will continue to say, not name, it has pseudo-frantic combat. Bigger the parties, the slower the combat in some ways. And a really deep, complex mechanical system that I don't think people really think of it this way, but it equally balances like a lot of your setup. How did you build your character? What equipment did you get? Like that. With what are you doing when you actually get in combat? Because it's real time. It's well, not all video games are. It's real time because it's a video game. Kind of hard to do real time in RPGs there, like tabletop RPGs. Some CRPGs are real time and some are turn based, and some have speed timers so that turn taking is not equivalent between everybody. Whatever. But this video game, the combat is real time. So there's actually a really interesting balance and tension between, not really tension, but balance and consequence between decisions you made when you could take all the time in the world you wanted with the decisions you're making when you're under a real time constraint and pressure and must make the best decision you possibly can right now or you lose. That is actually the tone that I'm seeking to capture. Ribbit challenged me one time when I was throwing some ideas at her and like, oh, I don't know about this idea versus that idea. How do I approach this problem? And she said, Indy, answer this question. What feeling when you play that game is it that you're trying to capture, want to replicate at the table? And I was like, that is a stupendous question. That is amazing. That's why I talk to you about these things. And I described it, and then we worked through the question I had and chose based on the design goal, right? Because that's essentially what that was, a design goal. So an interesting thing about where I'm going with this game then is it's abstractly tactical. Okay? It's abstractly tactical. You think theater of the mind stuff, your normal thing, or no, there's not even a whiteboard. We're just kind of describing where everybody's at. You can get tactical with that, but it's hard to be fully tactical, right? Because I might tell you where they're at and where they're at, but you can't just look at the board, like when people play on like some kind of grid map, like if the role-playing game was just a miniatures game, and look at the relationship of everything and be able to count out the exact distance between here and there and know exactly how far someone can shoot or move and when they're in range versus out of range, etc. But a design goal for this is that, right, if I want to capture the feeling of the game, then it has to be designed in such a way where you make decisions and you get told really quickly how well that decision worked out for you. And then you have to make another decision really quickly after that. So the idea then being is that that this is kind of a three-dimensional game. I mean, technically all of our RPGs are dimensional, right? Now, a fantasy game, someone can crawl up a tree, or maybe a sniper's up the top of a building or whatever. But I mean, like like think sub-air space, submarine air or space, right? Like unless there's something in space or a mountain or a sun or whatever, you've got all the movement you want in all three axes. So that would also create, if I was being super tactical about it, that would create a whole ridiculous level of tediousness. Can't get people's heart pumping about their decisions and costing them their decisions really fast, or showing success because of decisions really fast, if you have to manage something like that. So the idea is that, and it might work best with a whiteboard, right? But basically, you and your friends over here, the enemy over here, and I'm by over here I mean just like dot your name, dot your friend's name, dot your other friend's name, dot enemy one's name, dot enemy two. All we do is we just draw a relative, like, oh, are you going to approach that middle enemy? You just draw a line, and you say this is the distance between you, and you're closing them, right? And using the mechanics of the system, you keep that updated, and you say like, well, now you're here, now you're there. Movement's abstracted. It's basically you're going towards, you're going away, circling, or you're weaving. You're just evading, right? And your navigation versus their navigation, skills involved, equipment involved. All right, then this is your new relative position to each other. And when you need to find another target, well, was this, or you need to answer the question, how far is someone away from you, if you actually need to answer that question? Well, overall, was this a small scale, close in, tight fight? Okay, roll a die. You're this far away. Was it a large scale? Roll this one. Was it a medium scale? Roll. Like just single die roll, completely random. Look it up, go, okay, the answer is this, because we're not keeping track of this. We're not keeping track of where everybody is in relationship to everybody else. So that is my hope. And the other thing that's actually going to work well, unfortunately, is this is probably going to be a really good sheep protector kind of game. It's probably not going to work real great. It's just straight up paper, I'm betting. You're going to want to be able to keep track of hit point loss really fast. You're going to be able to want to reuse ideas. You're going to want to preload some numbers, technically, like basically, like, oh, what's that person's damage against me is going to be this. Okay, so let's just write that down. So that when it happens, I just know what it is. I don't have to recalculate it. But you don't need that. It's like type it out. And also that way, decisions that you've made, you can just, like, if all you want to do is change one of the things that you could possibly be doing, because you can be doing many things. Obviously, this is technical, going to be higher tech. This is not fantasy. I guess it's not completely obviously. There are possibilities, but whether it's sub or ships or spaceships, that's you can have multiple things going on, because it's not actually just you. There's also crew on the ship, but so it's not just, oh, I'm doing this and this. You could be doing 5 things, and maybe you want to drop 2 of those things. So dropping of those 2 things would be as simple as, like, you're writing down on your sheet protector or your whiteboard, whatever, these are the things I'm doing. And the next round, you're like, I don't want to do those 2 things anymore, but I want to continue doing these 3 things. Wipe, done. Right? Like, I'm actually thinking, like, testing this out with new players might be a 30-second timer. I am actually talking about using a timer. That's, as far as I know, that's probably not completely new to RPG. And I'm not trying to do new. I'm not into newness just for newness sake. I would be surprised if it hasn't been done before. I know it's definitely not common. With all the different games I've played, I mean, where's that information? I mean, that list down there of all those games that I've played. And probably one or two that I still can't remember and have forgotten upon the list. I've never come across a game that has an RPG, a tabletop RPG that also has a timer. But I figured that would be. I think this is going to be necessary to get that tension in, is to actually have a timed round. That's also, like I said, this is where the sheet protector or some kind of whiteboard or whatever comes into play, because that way you are really only updating, just updating. That's it. You're updating the changes. That's it. You know, maybe get a little bit more extra time for that first round because you're going to be writing even more down, right? Like your movement and your this and your that and your this other thing and blah 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 blah. And then from there maybe shorter because all you're doing is, oh, let's change my movement or change this or unequip this and equip that. You know. I have no idea. So I've worked out a lot of the skill mechanics. And of course I went differently than the video game because the video game has computer power behind everything, right? We're going to be doing things on paper and pencil. I'm trying to write down, things down, work them down to smaller total numbers, working with ratios instead of ridiculous minute percentages that go into tenths, hundredths, or even thousandths of degrees or percentages. Stuff like that. All that stuff the computer can manage. You put in effort in the video game and you get a 2.5% improvement. Yeah, we're not doing that in a tabletop RPG. That's not. No. So, I've got pretty much all the skills worked out. And I worked a lot on the ideas of like, how do we represent the equipment? All the various equipment. I did a lot of work on that. And I'm almost to the point when I get back to pushing on it. So when I get back to pushing on it, this will become a third push system. It will probably be pretty close to just coming up with some stories, some systems. I want the game to have good storytelling capabilities, but I don't think I want to worry too much about that mechanically. Like I honestly might take some of the aspect ideas from Fate. Say, hey, you need to start with the main character concept, and then a couple more from there, maybe as you go through play. But I don't want them. I don't know, but I feel like that the setting is rich enough, and that you could be narrative enough about it that you don't like. It's not going to be a drama telling game. I mean, could, but in that case, you're really just writing fiction together, fan fiction for the game, which is a totally fine idea. I basically want the system there to handle the mechanics. So really, you could almost play this like the old BattleTech MechWarrior thing, right? Where I don't think they exactly did it this way, but you could basically be telling the story and creating the story narratively when you're not in vehicles, when you're not in whatever the setting is. I'm keeping distracted when I talk. As you interact with different politicians or different corporation people or different movers and shakers in the world, other people and then when it gets to the point where like, oh, a fight's gonna happen, great. Break out the dice, break out the sheet protected sheets, and let's go at it. It might even be something like that, which is also fine. So by the way, the second push was a few months ago, and I basically I took a second look at some of the things, worked on the real like some specific numbers of what things were going to be, settled on a dice pool system with target dice pool system with target numbers, and multipliers for excessive successes beyond the first. Actually, it's just gonna be multipliers, period. So it's not like 6 points for the first success and plus 3 points for each one after that. No, it's just gonna be 3 points apiece. So there's also going to be there's going to go ahead and be a critical success number, which would be the 0 probably, right? As a 10. And the lowest good number is not a critical fail. There's no critical fail, but there's basically a failed success, will a partial success. Like, well, you did this, but you did it really poorly. I had to think really hard, and as I'm going through the system, there are all these mechanics I'm designing about how much weight am I adding, right? Because this is going to be fast. So, speaking of fast, this video is now 20 minutes long, 20 minutes long. So, gotta go. Bye.